This meeting is now called to order. Welcome to tonight's meeting. So before we begin the meeting, on behalf of the board and President Balanca, I would like to take a moment to recognize the passing of Tony Procaccini. Trustee Landau, you have a prepared statement you'd like to give?
I do. Tony Procaccini was many things to Washtenaw Community College. He was one of its founders, a longtime trustee, a strong supporter and frequent visitor to campus events well into his 90s. We lost Mr. Procaccini recently when he died surrounded by family at the age of 100 years old. Tony Procaccini was also a family friend, so I appreciate the honor of speaking about him on behalf of the current WCC Board of Trustees. Tony and my father, Henry Landau, were on the WCC board together from 1977 to 1982, and they were both influential in the creation of the WCC Foundation. And as an aside, my father had an unfortunate tendency sometimes to fall asleep during meetings, and Tony would kindly give him a hard pat whenever he was nodding off, which was always much appreciated. Many people have probably seen Mr. Procaccini around campus, but not everybody knows exactly what he contributed to this college. I'd like to take a moment to fill in those blanks. Tony was also a member of the Ann Arbor Chamber of Commerce Education Committee way back in the early 1960s, and that group first presented the idea of starting a community college in Ann Arbor that would sustain the local workforce with the technical skills it needed to thrive. He has literally been a part of this college since it was only an idea. 1 year after voters approved the formation of the college in 1965, Tony was elected to join the WCC Board of Trustees and served in that capacity until 1992. In 1993, Tony was awarded this board's Award of Merit, the highest honor given by the college at that time for his contributions to the advancement of WCC and its mission. About that same time, an honor scholarship extended annually to a student at every high school in Washtenaw County was founded in his name. Let me remind you that Tony was 72 years old at this time, but his involvement with WCC was far from over. He and his lovely wife, Dawn, established the Anthony Procaccini Scholarship Endowment through the WCC Foundation in 1994, and he continued to make donations to that fund through this year. He loved attending the Foundation Scholarship Luncheon, where he could meet some of the 75 different occupational education students that benefited from that scholarship since it was created, and was frequently in attendance at many other college events. Tony was a great American who served our nation with distinction. He fought in the Battle of Okinawa, the last major battle of World War II and one of its bloodiest, for more than a month before suffering a concussion and recovering in a field hospital for another month. Being injured in battle entitled Tony to receive a Purple Heart, but it never came. When he finally received that Purple Heart during a special ceremony in 2019 at the age of 98, he told a reporter that he had been content to just be home alive and well with Dawn. They had 10 children together while Tony graduated from the University of Michigan, worked 28 years for the Bendix Corporation, and then founded his own human resources management firm, where he worked until his retirement at the age of 93. On behalf of the entire WCC Board of Trustees, I offer our deepest condolences to Tony's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. We will all miss him greatly, but look forward to celebrating his incredible century-long life here on campus on October 31st. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Landau. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor Mr. Anthony Procaccini. Thank you. Okay, now the approval of minutes, tab A. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the July 27th special and monthly meeting. Do I hear a motion? So moved.
Support.
been properly moved and supported. Vanessa, do we have any verbal communications?
Before we go into verbal communications, do you mind if we do the roll call for attendance?
We sure can.
Okay. Chair Milliken, Vice Chair Davis,
Here.
Treasurer DeVarty, Secretary Hatcher,
Here.
Trustee Fleming,
Here.
Trustee Landau,
Here.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
Here. So now do we have verbal communications?
There are no public comments, I don't think, but we did receive 6 communications. And after that, do we want to call on the WCCA?
Do we need to vote? We need to vote on the minutes.
We need to vote on
Motion for all in favor of,
the roll call. Okay.
we don't need a roll call.
No, so we don't need to do a roll call?
Okay, just forget it.
Yeah. So, Ms. Kissel, WCC Education Association?
Welcome. It's September 2021, and we are in the 21-22 school year already. And in many ways, it feels a bit like Groundhog Day, as our interactions are still very virtual. However, there are increasing signs of our pre-COVID campus life. The students and staff on campus are excited to be here and welcome the chance to work face-to-face. Launching a new term has not come without its challenges, but the main challenge is connected with planning for the return to campus while embracing the COVID-related changes. As there are no grievances to report at this time, the WCCEA continues to meet and talk regularly with the administration as we plan for winter 2022. Earlier this month, full-time faculty started the process of picking classes and balancing the online, virtual, and face-to-face offerings. With this comes the discussions around the many letters of agreement that have guided our work since we left campus. These letters have dictated the virtual office hours, advising counselor librarian rotation, meetings, and faculty time on campus. Now that the schedule is being prepared for release to the students in October, these letters and any changes need to be updated. The WCCEA has been ready to move forward with these letters since August and look to have the administrative feedback this week. Another area of focus for the WCCEA and the administration is the work to create a more equitable and sustainable plan for adding adjunct faculty to the college. Since the pandemic, any decisions around adjunct status have been frozen in an effort to manage the many changes to our institution. We have some good data from which to work and hope to have a plan in the near future. All of this is happening as we welcome many new faculty and staff to the bargaining unit and begin our internal talks in preparation for the 2022 negotiations. I know that many of us keep waiting for a time to be still and reflect on all that is past, but these moments are difficult to find. We move from one important matter to another, hoping that we get it right. The good news, despite the frenetic pace, is that the WCCEA continues to be at the ready to work collaboratively to find solutions that honor our contract, this institution, our students, and community. I wish you all much happiness in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we move forward, I'd like to approve the agenda, if we could. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. Yeah.
Any opposed? Do we need a roll call on that? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kissel. Are there any public comments? No? Okay, moving forward. And I probably already asked you this. They're written communications.
Yes, there is 6
I see
received.
it twice. Okay, thank you. Special reports. Presentation on the local strategic value best practices for 2021. Dr. Julie Morrison.
Good evening. We're pleased to be here tonight to present to the board our annual local strategic value, which highlights how WCC meets best practices in serving our local partners and the community. As trustees will recall, completion of the local strategic value, or the LSV, has been a requirement of the state's budgeting process since 2011 and is typically approved as part of the Education Omnibus Appropriations Act. This year, the LSV has been approved as part of House Bill 4400 of 2021 and is expected to soon be signed into law by Governor Whitmer. The state requires that it be approved by board resolution, which the trustees will vote on later this evening. The local strategic value continues to be a component of the state performance funding formula that determines the % increase in each community college's budget. And you can see that formula here. It has not changed over the years very much. As you can see, allocations include 30% for sustainability. That's proportional to the prior year's base appropriations. 30% is weighted contact hours, with health and technology programs weighted higher. 10% each is allocated based on the rate of completion performance improvement, which measures each college's own improvement in 6-year completion rates for certificates, degrees, and transfer. The completion number, that's just straight up completions. And then also completion performance rate, that's relative to all 28 community colleges, so those all get 10%. Then 5% is allocated based on administrative costs, so lower administrative costs ranks higher. And 5% goes for the local strategic value. So though it may seem like a small portion of this formula is for the local strategic value, there are multiple benefits to completing it each year. Obviously, it's important to funding. WCC has consistently received among the highest % increases among like colleges every year. And for the 21-22 proposed allocation, the college has again received the second highest increase in the state. The LSV is also part of required transparency reporting. All colleges must include the LSV as part of reporting on their homepage, and you can see the icon there. If you go to our homepage, everybody can see it there. And that allows us to share evidence of how we meet best practices with all of our audiences. But perhaps most importantly, it documents examples of how we make an impact in the local community every year. It's really a yearly opportunity to demonstrate our unique value to the specific communities, partners, and populations we serve. And it's a document that we really do use internally regularly throughout the year and every year as it changes. So we show you this every year. The LSV addresses the college's ability to meet these 15 best practices in 3 categories that relate to local activity. And we need to meet 4 out of 5 in each category to be allocated that 5% for the LSV. Economic development, business and industry partnerships, educational partnerships, and community services are those 3 categories. Trustees can find a highlighted copy of this year's LSV in your materials under tab J. There's also a clean copy that will go to the state, but we'll refer you to the highlighted copy that highlights the things this year that are new, noteworthy, or updated from last year. And tonight, AVP Tucker, EVPs Hearns and Blakey, and VP Mueller will all share some of those highlights for you. And now I'll turn it over to AVP Tucker to get started with economic development, business, and industry partnerships.
Good evening. As Julie mentioned, the first focus is around economic development and business and industry partnerships. The first best practice is around active partnerships with local employers, including healthcare. And over the past year, in the midst of a pandemic, as you may remember from a previous presentation, we launched our new long-term healthcare worker training, which was driven by employers and fully funded by employers, addressing a critical talent shortage of about 300 open positions at any given time throughout our county. We had 2 new healthcare programs that were driven by industry input through our advisory boards, both our healthcare administration associate degree and a cardiac telemetry certificate. We hosted a number of health events, one, the opioid crisis virtual event in partnership with Michigan Medicine Center for Health Transformation, And we did blood drives, 2 or 3 of those here on our campus. We also partnered with our county health department and Rite Aid to host vaccination clinics. We participated now for year 5 in our CCAT Global Symposium, sponsored by the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, also known as UMTRI, and had employers such as our good partner down the street, Toyota Product Development. Our Public Service Training Department continued partnerships with local law enforcement agencies statewide for recruiting and training. There were a number of agencies that drove upwards of an hour and a half to come and visit with our recruits with hopeful employment opportunities. Our Advanced Transportation Center was represented in a number of industry conferences such as Montebello, which was last week, the Car Management Briefing Seminar, which is annually in Traverse City, and most recently, last week as well, our Eyes on Auto Design. We increased our automotive partnerships with 2 of our key employers, the Ford Motor Company Design Center and General Motors, who offered our students opportunities through internships. Ford offered 12, General Motors offered 3, and I'm happy to note that in the Ford Design Center, all 12 of those interns got full-time employment, and those 3 interns at GM are currently interviewing for open positions. The EMU Digital Media Department has an internship program that we have been a partner for years. 40 interns have gone to that program, placed at a number of key employers across our county. And our experiential learning internship program continues to increase its program placements. Even in the midst of COVID, a lot of those internships went virtually. The second best practice is around customized on-site training for area companies and employers. We had 2 customized trainings this year with Nova Coast, which is our cybersecurity boot camp, and the Pittsfield Township Public Safety Department engaged the college to do a first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion staff training. 2 sessions for every firefighter, police officer, dispatcher, and office personnel. We launched 2 new academic programs, advanced certificates in cybersecurity, and with the support of local grant funds and state grant funds, we were able to develop our cybersecurity lab in the BE building. And then we developed a number of short-term training programs, as mentioned, the cybersecurity boot camp, and of course, the long-term healthcare worker training, which supported Home Watch and Vibrant Life. The third measure is, and best practices around support for entrepreneurship targeted towards small business. As you know, our WCC Entrepreneurship Center is always busy, and they continue the Renew Your Business training and grant program, which focused this year on minority and women-owned and veteran-owned businesses in Eastern Washtenaw County impacted by COVID. And funds for that were given by way of Ann Arbor Spark. In the midst of being virtual, we had 850 attendees at 44 educational webinars specifically for business owners. And we expanded, nearly doubled our Entrepreneurship in Residence program, which is made up of local entrepreneurs who've seen success in their own company. Our Small Business Development Center on campus increased service this past year over the previous year, servicing over 1,000 clients, opening 63 new businesses. Our business degree, we accelerated that to allow students to get in and get out faster. And then, of course, we have certificate programs that exist in entrepreneurship, supply chain, and management. And then our Economic and College Development Department or Division and our Entrepreneurship Center partnered together to do a Lunch and Learn series. And they provided free professional development for small business owners who were receiving services through the Entrepreneurship Center. The fourth best practice is around technological advancement through industry partnership, incubation activity, or operation of an advanced technology center. We developed online training for technicians in intelligent transportation systems, which is a tenet of our ATC. We continue to expand our programming within the ATC by participating with the Department of Transportation as well as Michigan ITS work groups, and our trade partners who've always been a benefit to our college and our community, In the midst of COVID, we were able to stand up a number of online programs, including over 100 online courses for 1,700 UA members. The virtual or the instructor training program that generally would be on ground became virtual. And then there was some on-campus training. While not as large, it still served around 500 members of a number of union partners. And then we were able to support the UA by standing up online training support to over 160 UA local training centers across the country. We became the first community college to commit with DTE to the My Green Power program to move towards clean energy by 2030. The fifth and final best practice is around active partnerships with local and regional workforce and economic development agencies. We became approved by the Society for Human Resource Management, also known as SHRM, to offer professional development credits for our particular programs that we offer for a number of their certification programs. And our staff continue to have active engagement through the local chapter called GSHRM, which is our Greater Ann Arbor Society for HR Management. We still hosted the Economic Club virtually and added the Young Leaders membership in 2020. And I think it's important to note that just today we received notification from DTE Foundation that they were so impressed by that new offering that they are sponsoring the entire year for Young Leaders programming over the next year. We partner with Michigan Works on talent pipeline program development. Many of those short-term training programs that we stood up by way of employer and industry input were fully funded or partially funded through Michigan Works dollars. The Center for Career Success, formerly known as Career Transitions, virtually supported 1,200 individuals. Those are both students, alumni, and community members by way of 1,000 job postings, and worked with employers to do targeted job fairs with over 70 employers and 150 attendees at those 2 job fairs, both fall and winter, and hosted a virtual internship fair with 80 students and 20 employers to match them up for internship opportunities. We partnered with YCS to create a learning lab for K-5 children and families, and expanded our partnership through the Ypsilanti District Library to focus on literacy programming and outreach. With that, our next category is Category B, Educational Partnerships, and EVP Hearns and EVP Blakey. Yes, Trustee Hatcher.
I have a question back on page 5. Who did the Pittsfield Township Department of Public Safety, I don't know, sensitivity, diversity training?
Yep, 2 of our trainers that have experience in both DE&I and working with police agencies did that training for us. One of them happens to be an instructor within our police academy. It is currently serving as a deputy chief at one of the local agencies. And another was a part-time instructor that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they put the 2 together to focus on kind of the DE&I training, along with how it can be contextualized and made in the context of a public service department.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
The first category under educational partnerships best practice is active partnerships with regional high schools, intermediate school districts to provide dual enrollment, middle college, or other programs. We partnered with the Washtenaw Intermediate School District to continue to provide our GED and ESL instruction to Eastern Washtenaw County. We provided that remotely during COVID. We've continued to partner with local high schools on our dual enrollment offerings. 11% of our new students for this fall semester are dual enrolled students. We continue to work with area high schools to offer classes on site, including virtual classes. And we supported the K-12 STEAM project, Learning to Innovate Vehicle Design, through collaboration with Square One Education Network. Category 2 for best practice is hosts, sponsors, or participates in enrichment programs for area K-12 students. We continue to have our our summer youth classes and camps through our community enrichment program. We did that virtually during 2021, including art and engineering, our connected vehicle camp, and our STEAM middle school program. We have our K-12 summer programs, which we had a presentation on earlier this year, on enrichment classes and camp, now called the Summer Learning Experience at the Park Ridge Community Center. We also had a partnership with Square One to provide CCAT-funded connected vehicle project, team, and teacher learning. We also continue to have our annual STEAM Week, which was virtual in 2021, to introduce students to STEM fields. We had over 40 sessions, and we had over 450 participants this year. We also had our annual CTE Month, with events including introducing students to our CTE pathways and resources.
The third best practice is programming to promote successful transition to college for traditional age students, including activities to promote college readiness in area high schools or centers. We expand our first-year student success coach model, as you all saw earlier in the year with Target X. We've been increasing communication and other programs in that software, and this year we served over 1,200 first-time degree-seeking students. We partner with Ypsilanti Community Schools, that we continued that partnership and using Alex as a math tool, and we're excited to report that there was a 50% increase in the number of bridge students who are enrolled in math for 2021. We implemented an exciting co-requisite model for college reading, writing, and math to respond to Reconnect and Future for Frontliners, but that's a program that's going to impact all of our students as it relates to college readiness. We expanded the virtual classroom model to promote online options for student success. And we launched the Alpha Scholars Program this year, which is part of our $1.4 Title III grant from the Department of Education. We continued offering and expanded the Student Success Conference for each semester to provide success strategies and resources. And we created the Virtual Student Connection Welcome Center, which allows us to continue to serve our students virtually and triage them at one counter physically on the second floor of the Student Center. And that's really an extension of Target X, because we're allowed now to queue students using text messaging or email, and students don't have to wait in the lobby to be served, but they can be served and triaged at one facing area for financial aid, advising, and general student connection questions.
Fourth area of best practice in this category is programming to promote successful transition to college for new or re-entering adult students. We launched the state-funded Futures for Frontliners and Reconnect, which had over 987 students for Futures and 831 students for Reconnect, programs for adult learners during COVID. These scholarships awarded equal almost $1.5 million for Frontliners and over $670,000 for Reconnect students to date. We were awarded the gold status again in 2021 as a veteran-friendly school. We also have the WCC Foundation Emergency Grant, which helped over 120 students with assistance. We distributed federal relief funds to assist students during COVID. Over $2.4 million was given in CRISA funds and $2.67 million in ARPA funding for this year. The Bailey Library checked out 422 laptops and over 400 hotspots to fill technology gaps, and IT provided technology support through 71 computer labs on campus.
Continuing best practice 4, we implemented Circle In to allow students to study and collaborate virtually. And we also expanded our mental health services. Most importantly, that included all counselors trained in mental health, telehealth, and expanded our collegiate recovery program. We continued the development of Smart Pairs, which is a selection of accelerated online course pairs to promote faster progress to completion. And our fifth and final best practice is active partnerships with four-year colleges and universities to promote successful transfer or a university center. We continue to grow our STEM Scholars Program, welcoming 65 students in our 2021 cohort. We also created the University Transfer Center that included this year the expansion of an articulation agreement with EMU Media Studies and Journalism program. We've offered a variety of virtual programming, panel discussions, and other opportunities for students to learn about transfer and articulation to other four-year universities. And in addition, we offered our Transfer to Success Club, which continued during COVID virtually to support transfer activity of students. Finally, we collaborated with the University of Michigan College of Engineering on an NSF proposal to create battery manufacturing programs supported by WCC's new Ford Mach-E electric vehicle.
And now Dr. Michelle Mueller will cover Community Services Category C.
Good evening. The first best practice in the community services category is continuing education, programming for leisure, wellness, personal enrichment, or professional development. WCC met this goal over the last academic year by creating over 200 classes for enrichment and development that were offered virtually. Hosting a free virtual 3-day career catapult series on jump-starting careers for both the community and for our students. Offering senior-focused health and wellness programs virtually during COVID, as well as providing tuition grants for those over age 65. Delivering a variety of community programming for youth, adults, and seniors at Park Ridge, along with renovations in the amount of $75,000 supported by community partners for the Park Ridge Center. Additionally, providing human resources collaboration with community partners to provide mental health and wellness resources to employees and their families. Participating in exercise on campus through the American College of Sports Medicine, which was recognized for the second year with the Silver Exercise in Medicine Award. For the third year, being awarded Washtenaw coordinated funding to support programming and services to communities in the eastern part of Washtenaw County, and receiving additional funding from the county and multiple local organizations to support and advance academic programs and instruction in the community, improve access to the technology at the Park Ridge Center. The second best practices: opportunities for community members to engage in activities for leisure, wellness, cultural, or personal enrichment, such as sports teams, theater or music ensembles, or artist guilds. We met this by providing a free race and ethnic relations webinar series for the community in 2021 with over 600 enrollments. We partnered with the City of Ypsilanti to create Layers of Identity, interactive community art project providing connection during COVID, and offering a free college week to the community with over 80 free virtual sessions and over 1,200 participants. The third best practice: facilities to promote cultural, educational, or personal enrichment for community members, such as libraries, computer labs, performing arts centers, museums, art galleries, or television or radio stations. And we did this by working with local artists and students to exhibit artwork throughout public spaces on campus. Whoops, sorry, didn't move that head. We hosted an annual juried student art show held since 2016, which was held remotely. Hosting an annual human library project of shared lived experiences and stories that was open to the public, and hosting the third annual Michigan Community College Gender and Sexuality Conference, open for all Michigan community colleges, LGBTQIA+ communities, and allies. The fourth best practice: facilities to promote leisure or wellness activities for community members, such as gymnasiums, athletic fields, fitness centers, nature trails, etc. And we met this best practice through our fitness center and programs that we provide. And they include things like over 50 courses per week, special programs such as meditation, aqua, size, and tai chi, free lectures related to nutrition, fitness, and health topics, group exercise classes, virtual services, and we added additional safety features implemented during COVID that include air balancing of HVAC systems, enhanced cleaning and online booking of pool lanes and classes. And finally, certification as a medical fitness center by the Medical Fitness Association, offering services in those medical issues of recovering from injury, illness, or surgery. In addition, the college has extensive nature trails, as well as a non-motorized pathway for pedestrians and cyclists. And the fifth best practice: community services activities for students, staff, or community members. And to meet this goal, we partnered with University of Michigan C.S. Mott Children's Hospital to hold a week-long esports event in October 2021 to raise money to purchase gaming devices for pediatric patients at Mott Hospital. We allowed students to connect with volunteer opportunities at Student Welcome Day each semester. We've been designated a voter-friendly campus in 2021 by Campus Vote Project for high level of student engagement. We sponsored the regular faculty staff participation in the American Heart Association Walk on campus. The Center for Career Success offers career fairs free of charge to community members, connecting them with 120 hiring employers annually. And advisors from the Center for Career Success sit on the local Hire My Vet committee, and WC hosts their local hiring fair. Thank you.
Any questions from, oh, okay, we're done? We're not done. Oh, okay.
We're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the trustee Hatcher?
I just, it's a related question, I think. What's the ratio percentage of classes this semester that are synchronous, asynchronous, virtual, and on campus? Do we have a percentage or sense? Is it 3, 3, and 3, or?
You stumped me a little bit with the synchronous versus asynchronous. I don't know that answer, but on campus it's about 25%.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
And then, of course, in the occupational areas, all of those,
Sure,
those classes have been on campus.
Anyone else? Trustee McKnight-Morton?
Yes, I'd like to ask VP Tucker. I just heard yesterday that Ford is advancing their electric program for trucks that they're going to be building in Tennessee and some other places besides Michigan. Kentucky, thank you. So do you know if we, as we're building our building, advanced transportation, do you think that we could be part of their scheme of things in hiring some of our students, or maybe they send their people over for training?
Absolutely. So there's 2 locations in Michigan, both the train station in Detroit and potentially repurposing another plant that's been unnamed that are going to focus on those new technologies. We were actually on a call with Ford 2 weeks ago because they are realizing more than ever that their approach to talent and 4-year universities needs to shift. So they've asked actually for our help at helping them look at what type of skill sets that can be obtained at the associate's degree and certificate level. So I do believe that with that increased partnership and the conversation that we've been having, we'll be able to be a pipeline. And I think the focus on EV, as we've been talking about, it is a new technology that builds upon existing technologies. So with us now having our Ford Mach-E, and with looking at curriculum and having Ford be at the forefront of making that investment, I think it's going to be a great marriage. And as I said, we've been in conversations with them.
I'm so ecstatic about this. I'm very, very happy to hear that. Because I thought about it when they were talking about and listening to Ford talk and how he was so enthusiastic about really getting out there about having the EVs going out and starting with these new training. He mentioned training facilities too. And so I was hoping that we would be one of those training facilities. So this really gives me a lot of hope that we can really help our community in this endeavor.
We're very excited as well.
Thank you.
President Balanca?
Yes. I'd like to acknowledge all the work that went to all the individuals that participated in these strategic initiatives over this past year. In addition to, well, this is our job, coming up with creative things, but in addition to running the college during, interesting times, you were able to implement such great programs to help our students in our community. So thank you so very much.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to tab B, the personnel recommendation. Before the motion is passed, please, AVP Mahaley for your report.
Good evening. You have a full personnel listing in front of you that encompasses employment activity over the past 10 weeks and in preparation for the fall semester. I wanted to bring a couple items to your attention. Under instruction, you will see that we have 2 newly hired faculty, 1 professional and 1 advisor. However, we actually have a total of 11 additional full-time faculty that have joined us this fall semester. 9 are professional faculty and 2 are advisors. The additional faculty have been promoted either from a part-time position or temporary full-time position. And we look forward to introducing our new faculty to the board at a future meeting. Under facilities, you will see a C19 custodial position. A C19 position is created along the guidelines established in the Federal CARES Act related to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. We have hired part-time C19 staff in the past to assist us with the daily COVID screening, and now that we have more faculty, students, and staff on campus, we've expanded those C19 positions to full-time support and custodial maintenance, as well as in student services. Lastly, under student and academic services, you will see a position titled One-Stop Specialist. As EVP Hearns previously mentioned, the One-Stop and Welcome Center, we have created a one-stop position under the Office Professional OPT classification that will be the first person seen by a student for triaging purposes. We have 2 new hires on this report, and we're in the process of hiring additional one-stop specialists, both permanent and C19 positions that will support our needs. With that, any questions? Yes.
The full-time new hires for one-stop specialist are listed as replacements. So were they moved from one place to another?
Yeah, so what we have done with this position, we're consolidating the positions at the different service desks on the 2nd floor of SC, and we're moving them to the Welcome Center. So as these positions have become vacant, we're backfilling with the one-stop specialist. So yeah, we're treating them as a replacement because we had vacancies in a service desk area in another location in student services.
I was thrilled to learn about the new faculty because I was waiting for that because there have been so many that have been leaving, and a lot of new marketing people, but not so many faculty. The new hire, manager of experiential learning and employer relations.
Yes.
Who does that person report to?
That, I believe, reports to AVP Cover.
That position reports to the director of the Center for Careers. That's Cheryl Harvey. It's a replacement position for our Housework, who was previously our experiential learning coordinator.
Okay.
Got promoted to another role in the house, and we replaced that position.
Okay. And are we moving ahead with replacing the executive director of labor relations? That's a huge position.
We are moving forward with replacing, we are moving forward with.
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to answer that question. Yes, we are. Actually, we've posted that position as a vice president.
Okay.
And we're interviewing right now.
So it's a vice president of labor relations?
It'll be HR
and labor relations.
HR and, labor relations. Similar to when we had Doug Krusel.
Oh, it's a sort of Doug Krusel plus.
Yes.
Yes.
Okie doke, thank you.
And not filling that one.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee McKnight-Morton?
Thank you. I just want to give some shout outs to full-time ending employment. And I would like to give it to Derek Anders in Culinary Arts. He's done a wonderful job in that department. And I just really, and one time I was in some of his training when we had open college, and the way he talked, the way he explained things, and sometimes it was over and over the same thing, but a different way. But he was so patient and such a wonderful personality, and I wish him luck in his endeavors. My next couple of them I want to shout out is Jennifer Baker. My involvement with Jennifer, both of us, I know I'm a trustee, but I'm a human being and I'm a person, and I have a personality. She has a personality that goes along, and we just loved each other. We had so much fun in talking and being in one of her sessions, and I just really wish her a lot of luck now that she's retiring in her endeavors, because I thought she did a wonderful job here too. And a couple of the Cheryl Burns, 25 years, and there's another one, Juan Redondo. I don't know him, but I just want to wish him luck in the years of service that he's given, and a few others in 17 years. That's a long time to be at a facility, and especially us, our institution. And I think they devoted their time and their lives, and I just really appreciate all that they've done for this place. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
You need a motion.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just
Trustee
add to
Hester.
what you said. I didn't add up the years this time.
I'd forgotten. I was trying to do it.
But it's a lot of years.
It's a lot of
people
years.
working here.
Yes.
So I just, somebody else in the math department can add them up.
Right. Everybody's looking at each other.
Okay, so for tab B, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the personnel recommendations as submitted. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Board.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Says roll call.
I got
No.
to ask if it says roll call.
No, that's not money.
Okay, so we'll move on to the financial report. Let's see, which would be by VP Barnes.
This will be his first presentation to the board.
Oh,
Perfect, thank you. Good evening. So I'm going to walk you through, rather than read the narrative, I'm going to walk you through the actual financials that are on page 4. So before I start at the top, I'm actually going to start at the bottom. I'm just going to start and tell you the result for the year, then I'm going to tell you how we got there for the year. So we actually finished the year, if you look at the very bottom line there, total revenue over expenditures and transfers, we finished the year at $7.9 billion of increase in that position, which I think is a very good result under very difficult circumstances last year. How did we get there? You're going to see that while we had reductions in revenue, which would have been expected, there were also reductions in costs that kept us afloat. So going back up to the revenues, starting with total tuition and fees, with the COVID epidemic and the reduction in capacity of classrooms, social distancing, and so forth, that did result in lower tuition for the college. So you can see there that we underestimated the revenues by about or we overestimated the revenues by about $3.2 million. Going down to other revenues that aren't related to tuition and fees, some of the bigger ones, state appropriations, we had budgeted that it was going to stay at lower levels. It had been reduced by about 10%, but it did return to pre-pandemic levels. So you'll see that state appropriations are up by $1.6 million. Trade partnerships, we had anticipated that would be down, so you see that it's slightly above budget. at $113,000 favorable. In terms of investment income, I think as most of you know, interest rates are pretty historically low right now, and therefore the interest income that we earned on our investments was down about $100,000 or $118,000. The other and auxiliary activity revenue, this is things such as the community enrichment and conference center and so forth. While some of that was moved online, a large part of it could not be done. The conference center was closed for a while and has been closed. So those two together are down almost $1 million. So in total, total revenues were down $2.6 million. However, as I mentioned before, when we look down to the expenditures line and total expenditures, you'll see that total expenditures are actually favorable to budget by $10.4 million. As you might expect, there were much less activity on campus, and the variable cost associated with that brought down our cost by close to 10%, or about $10.3 million, as I mentioned. Continuing down to the operating transfers, the large variance you see there of $2.6 million favorable. In this section, most of these are transfers out to other funds, but this particular line is actually a transfer in of $4 million. Now, this is related to the fitness center. We had expected that the fitness center revenues would be down drastically, and they were down drastically. However, as part of the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, we were able to recover the revenues associated with the fitness center. So therefore, you actually see a favorable variance there of $2.6 million. And finally, if we move down to the other non-operating activity, the federal grant transfers line, that's a favorable $7.7 million. This also is related to the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, or HERF as I'll call it this evening. This is reimbursements of lost revenue. It's also reimbursements of other COVID preparedness activities, such as purchasing PPE, such as doing things for ventilation and so forth. So that program helped us recover a lot of that funding. The $10 million there, the board is very familiar with this. This is the transfer to the plant fund for the Morris Lawrence building, as you're very familiar with. And the final line there, $119,000 unfavorable. This is an unrealized loss on investments. We hold our investments to maturity, therefore we will never experience that unrealized loss. So again, walking us down, that gets us to the $7.9 million favorable. Are there any questions before I move on to the capital plan? Okay. So in terms of the capital fund, there is total revenues of a little over $20 million. Most of these projects are closed and are in fact done. The only one that is ongoing is the renovation of the Morris Lawrence building that you see there in the middle of the page. We have spent $559,000 to date. This is basically on the design work for the building. And starting later this year, the actual renovation will start. And there, so far, we have the $8.8 million spending. Any questions on the capital fund?
So the $644,000 is what we have left of this 8.7?
No, that's the balance. The 8.8 is the amount we're going to be spending with the general contractor so far. That would leave us with a contingency balance of $644,000.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move on to the deferred maintenance fund. Since the inception of the deferred maintenance fund in 2012, we've transferred over $21 million to this fund, and we've completed projects of almost $19 million in this fund. Projects in process as of year-end, fiscal year-end, were $2.7 million, leaving us a pretty de minimis balance there of $686. In terms of what's upcoming, at the bottom of the sheet, you'll see there's $2.1 million that we're going to be, we've already identified projects for the current fiscal year, and that'll be paid for by a budget transfer, or not a budget transfer, a plant transfer to plant fund that the board has already approved of $3.5 million. We've already identified $2.1 million of projects for that money, and we're still early in the year. And finally, this is our long-term investment portfolio. So I wanted to bring your attention to a few things. First is the effective rate of return. As I mentioned earlier, interest rates have declined. You'll see that our effective rate of return has declined by 55 basis points from 2.29% to 1.74%. So that has affected our long-term portfolio return roughly about $140,000. Moving down to investment type, you'll see this is the mix of bonds that we have. And the board has established ranges for the types of bonds, whether they're U.S. bonds, state of Michigan bonds, munis, or cash investments. And you'll see our current portfolio mix that all falls within the board-approved allocation for purchase of those bonds. The next category is the rating mix, if you will, the investment mix. And this is the mix, it's in the highest grade. All of these are investment grade bonds, but we have allocation between the different investment grades. All of our bonds are currently in the highest grade. We really haven't had any opportunities to purchase lower grade bonds. There are very few in the market right now. We're looking for those. While they carry a modestly higher risk, they also carry higher returns for the college. So we're actively looking for those. And finally, the working capital reserve policy. The board has established a policy that we have 5% of our annual operating budget in cash. You'll see here at the bottom that at our lowest point, we had almost double that amount of cash available for the college. So we never fell below that threshold. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, the recommendation for the Board of Trustees to receive the financial reports for June 2021 as follows: General Fund, Deferred Maintenance Fund, Capital Fund, and Combined Schedule of Investments, all funds. Do I hear a motion?
So, second.
Thank you. Tab D, the Facilities Development Report by AVP Whipstock.
Do we have to vote?
Do we have to vote?
It's money.
Okay, any discussion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
It's a roll call.
It's roll call because it's money.
Okay,
So Vanessa, please call.
thank you.
Isn't that true?
Vanessa, could you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Secretary Hatcher,
Yes.
Trustee Fleming,
Yes.
Trustee Landau,
Yes.
Trustee McClure.
Yes. AVP Whipstock? Okay, who's getting?
Good evening. Go over a couple high visibility projects. So with the BE entry door replacements, the materials are still on order. We're planning on having them on site for the Christmas break for a full replacement then. The parking lots 4 and 6 repairs are fully complete. Both lots are back in operation. Both the GL and LA roof restoration projects have been complete. Going on to campus repair and maintenance, the campus-wide elevator upgrades, the LA building elevator rebuild is complete, and we're right in the middle of rebuilding the BE building currently. Right now, we actually just started today the rebuild of boiler number 1. During a recent inspection, we found that boiler tubes had failed, so we're replacing the tubes on the boilers. Other than that, any questions?
Madam Chair?
Trustee, go ahead.
I I'm just asking a couple of things. Number 2, the restroom renovations. How many restrooms are we talking about and where?
Well, it's starting in the Student Center building, and our plan is over the next several years to upgrade all of the public restrooms in various different buildings. So this is the first phase of upgrading the public restrooms.
Okay. There's something else, but I'll talk to you later about it. And then and back on number 4, the campus-wide lighting upgrades.
Yep.
And how many replacement of the lighting fixtures? Is that the whole parking lot?
Well, yeah, the parking lot's different, but this is the internal building. So the BE building is 100% LED lighting at this point. The LA building is almost 75% LED lighting. So this is a campus-wide LED lighting project, getting rid of the fluorescent lights and going to the LED.
Okay.
So right now we're doing where we can in the LA building. We're trying to get the LA building completed. So that's our next target building to get complete is the LA building.
Okay. So we're looking at next year for another building.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be doing this for a few years.
A few years.
It's going to take, there's, I think we counted over 11,000 fixtures that we have to do.
That's
And in order to keep our 2% energy goal, we have to do 1,400 fixtures per year in order to maintain our 2% energy goal.
Oh, my. That's quite
So
a
it's a
bit.
little over 100 fixtures a month. It sounds like it's not much, but trying to get into classrooms and all that is,
Sure.
yep.
Yeah, I understand that one.
So
Okay.
how far along are we in that process then?
I'm sorry?
How far along in that process?
Have
Are
we
we-
started?
We've already, yeah.
I think we've gotten about 3,000 fixtures done so far.
Good, good.
And when we do the ML building, the renovation, that entire building where we're going to do is going to be upgraded at that time. So these other projects that are happening, these capital projects, will address those buildings' LED lights. We're doing the other buildings.
Trustee Hatch.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say that people like me who have migraine headaches are thrilled that the fluorescent lights will be
Yeah.
going away.
Yes, the fluorescent lights are known to cause headaches and migraines, and LED lights do not have that flicker.
right.
You are correct.
Thank you.
Trustee McKnight-Moore?
Yes, I just thought about this, and I should have asked Vice President Tucker. Seeing how we're going towards the, everything's going to be EV, electrical vehicles, are we going to be having outlets to these buildings? Because at this point in time, our vehicles are going to be EVs. And so where are we at? I know this is still in our planning stages, but are we discussing this? And I'm talking to the president now.
Yes, we are.
And so far, you know, the board hasn't really got into that yet. But I think this is something that possibly we can talk about at our retreat, or
Yeah.
somewhere.
If, Madam Chair, I think that would be okay with you?
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yes.
We can give
Actually,
you an
coming up
update.
in the parking lot lighting project that I'll be presenting, I was going to mention that once we do that project and the transformer that we're changing, we're going to add the capabilities and the connection points for EV chargers out in Lot 7. So we're actually already kind of planning that we know that EV vehicles are coming in. So when we were working on these transformers, we're adding the capability of electric vehicle charging.
That's great. I don't know if anyone else had their vehicle tested by the U of M for future, the future cars. It's called a UMRTI or something like that on the campus. I know my car was tested for the past 3 years. I had all the equipment in there, but in any case, they had that futuristic city there. And it is very, I don't think they'll have it open anymore, but I've been twice. And what they have done is retrofit this futuristic city where everything is monitored towards an EV vehicle. And the roads, sidewalks, trees, flowers, banks, dirt. Sounds funny, but it's true. And so that's something that I know is going to be probably past my time, but that's something that needs to be discussed too for this facility.
I don't think it's going to be past your time.
Thank you very
Sooner
much.
than you think.
Well, I know it's on our corner right now, but, that is something that, we need to, and I know everyone's probably been reading about it, hearing about it, but it's here. It is here. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Okay, thank you. So we now move on to remarks of members of the Board of Trustees.
Seems like I was going to say something.
Well, I like to say something. I'm happy to be back. It's great to see all of you.
Yay.
I know, it's the beginning, the first meeting, and I'm in the hot seat, so thank you very much. I think I'm doing pretty good. I've had a great month off. I've started school, which is always awesome to always be in continual learning. So I am now an adult student all over again. I'm taking a CAD class. I'm learning to be a product developer, something that I had dabbled in when I used to go to Eastern way back when, and I took some courses at Lazy Boy. So moving forward, this is where I'm at now, made some connections, and I'm moving forward in that endeavor, and I am pleased. So, yeah. Go ahead, Trustee Hatcher.
I found my notes here.
Oh.
And you're doing very well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention the professional development people and their sort of open door messages to faculty about teaching. They're really quite wonderful passages and suggestions and stories that they're sharing with each other, which is how we all learn, I think. It's at least how I learned. I wondered if we were going to make a proposal for daycare money from the state. There's only $2 million, but I don't know, you have to make a proposal for that. And also reminisce just a little. In the old days, we used to share via email or somehow momentous events like Procaccini's death or births or marriages with each other. We don't do that anymore with the family, but I did want to mention that Mariam Berry, who you'll remember, her mother died a couple of weeks ago, and Washtenaw was well represented at her mother's funeral last week. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Anyone else? All right, we have remarks from President Balanca.
Thank you. Well, I too would like to welcome everyone to fall 2021 semester at Washtenaw Community College. It's been a great beginning. It really has been. I'd like to acknowledge the collaboration and cooperation of all of our students, our clients, our employees. I mean, masking up and, following the protocol that we've established to have a safe environment, has really been very, very impressive. So thank you for that. And we continue to work, very seriously on keeping this a very safe environment. But we started our year with a wellness day board. What we thought we would do is begin the year with an opportunity to focus our staff before they came back and taking care of themselves. Because the stress of what everyone is going through, when we talk about our students and what they are encountering, that's the same stress our staff feels. And so we wanted to take a day to say, hey, these are some things you can learn, some ways that you can take care of yourself, because that's very important to us, because you're important to us. In addition, we had another great student welcome day. I see Pete just left the building, but Pete Leskovich did a great job with our student welcome day, showcasing our resources, clubs, and fun activities, and it was good to have that outdoors. Police Academy graduation, again, was very successful, and it was earlier than this month, and out of 18 graduates, 7 graduates were already employed before starting, and 9 more secured employment upon completion. One of the stories that resonated with me was that of one of our academy graduates. And this is what I love about a community college. Stephen Francoeur. In this class of approximately 20-somethings, Stephen, age 49, is a former biology professor at Eastern Michigan University, and he accepted an early retirement package and decided to pursue a second career in law enforcement. And he did that here. And it's because his father served in that profession for over 30 years. He won 5 awards at the graduation ceremony, including the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards Outstanding Recruit Award, the High Academic Average Award, the Emergency Vehicle Operation Award, the Firearms Excellence Award, and the Subject Control Excellence Award. So I'd like to congratulate Stephen, but also, isn't that what we're here for? Yeah. Is wherever you are in life, just, we're here. It's like a highway, just on and off. The esports, remember our esports? Well, the competition is coming up on October 3rd. Wolfpack Esports, it's a Stream for Mott fundraising. And the students will be streaming to raise, for a good cause, to raise money to purchase gaming devices for patients at the University of Michigan C.S. Mott Children's Hospital. So we're very proud of our esports program, and I hope that you will have time to participate, and I hope everyone has a chance to engage and possibly contribute to that effort. I'd like to also give some kudos. Faculty kudos to Molly Liederman for her OER presentation. She was presented at the OER Summit Conference with colleagues from Saginaw Valley State University and Aquinas College. So thank you so much, Molly. Our United Association, just earlier, trustees, you heard about all the things that were going on with that UA. I'd like to thank Michelle as the vice president of the area, but I want to tell you about Marilyn Dunham. I've had the opportunity to sit with her and hear her speak across the table with members of the different academies. She is outstanding. She's outstanding. And all of the things that you just read, those were all her ideas, she and her team, and I just want to make sure that we don't forget it, because, she's kind of like hidden in the closet. Not really, but, we don't really see her face everywhere, so let's not forget the great, great job that she is doing. Writing Center, kudos, Tom Zimmerman. I really want to thank Tom because of the literary publications that he has been leading and continues to produce here. And it really didn't matter that we were on COVID or whatever. We, as you know, He's been promoting creative writing across campus and encouraged faculty, staff, and the community to write poetry, prose, and artwork for the Huron River Review. I hope you've received these. If you haven't, please let Vanessa know. We'll make sure you have this. The Big Windows Review and several anthologies. So thank you, Tom, for bringing that excellence. And finally, and last but not least, I'd like to thank the WCC Foundation Board. They are very dedicated to doing what is right for this college and supporting the success of our students. And I would hope that the board will join me in thanking outgoing foundation board members, Catherine Farrell, Nicole Tolbert, Douglas Weber, and Anna Zinkel. We appreciate their service, and hopefully we can figure out a way to get them back. And lastly, and I probably should have said this first, Tony Procaccini I'll never forget meeting him because he said he had to meet me right away because he had to make sure it was the right president for this college. And he was, regular calls in the beginning. He visited regularly, and we ended up being very close friends. He loved this place, and I believe we all loved him. So God bless you, Tony. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So moving on to tab E, this is the review of FY21 audit by Vice President Barnes.
Good evening again. So just to level set the board before I begin, the financials I reviewed a few moments ago, that was the general fund versus the budget. Now I'm going to be reviewing the total college, which includes the general fund, but also includes the restricted fund, the pension fund, the auxiliary fund, and the plant fund. And all of the variances that you'll see are versus the prior year, not versus the budget. So what are a few highlights of the year? The net position of the college increased by over $10 million, taking our net position up to $19.7 million. And while our operating revenue decreased by $9.2 million, primarily related to COVID impacts, this negative impact was offset by the HERF funding that I mentioned in my last presentation. In terms of pension, there was a large swing this year, but it was a favorable swing, improving by $16.4 million, leaving us with a liability of $176.1 million. In terms of operating revenues, you'll see here, starting at the top, the tuition and fees. Our credit hours were down. There was a shift, as you all know, to online courses due to COVID, and many of the lab courses were offered at a reduced capacity or were not offered at all. Therefore, the tuition and fees revenue did decline. The grants and contract revenue, this was primarily one particular contract, the Job Seekers Grant, that was a 4-year grant that was not renewed. In terms of auxiliary services, this was the closure of the Health and Fitness Center for a while, along with the reduced memberships at the fitness center, took the auxiliary services revenue down by a couple of $1 million. And finally, in other sources, this is generally driven by the trade partnership revenue and the conference center revenue. Again, all down about $9.2 million. You can see that the vast majority are related to COVID. In terms of expenses, just as the revenues went down, expenses also did go down, decreasing 4.8% or $6.9 million. Large part was the general fund savings, $7.8 million, due to less activity on campus, resulting in less cost. $6.9 million of pension and OPEB savings versus the prior year. These two items are above. The savings were offset somewhat by the HERF-related funding for students. Now, this is funding that we actually receive via this PERF program from the federal government, but we turn around and we pass it out to the students. So it flows through our revenue, but it also flows through our cost. But importantly, in the last bullet there, importantly, that over 2/3 of our expenditures are still dedicated to instruction, instructional support, and student services and student aid, which we try to maintain that level of spending on where it counts. In terms of non-operating revenue, you'll see that non-operating revenue was up over the prior year by $22.6 million. This is driven overwhelmingly by the HERF funding. Part of that, again, is the revenue that we received in order to turn and give to the students. Students that expressed a need and had an emergency due to COVID, we were able to give them help and provide funding to those students. We also received $14.4 million in institutional funding to offset some of the impacts to the college, such as reduced tuition and fees, fitness center revenues, offset our costs related to preparedness and PPE, as well as ventilation, among other items. For fiscal year 21, the state did return our state appropriations to pre-pandemic levels. And in terms of the local government property taxes, they did increase by almost 4% or $2.2 million. We're very fortunate here at the college to have a county with a great tax base that is also growing and providing great revenue for the college. When you add these up, you see our operating results. Our operating results are $10.3 million, as mentioned previously. This includes the general fund results that you saw in the previous presentation of $7.9 million, and it also includes impacts to the other funds, primarily a transfer to the plant fund. In terms of our net position, our total assets were up $15.6 million. This is primarily driven by an account receivable that we have awaiting the HERF funding from the program from the federal government. The $15.9 million decrease in total liabilities, this is primarily due to the change in the pension plan, primarily changes in assumptions, and a decrease in our proportionate share of the liability at the state level. And finally, these two favorable items somewhat offset in net deferrals. These lines are basically a way of smoothing or amortizing the effects of the pension swings from year to year. It amortizes those impacts over time. In terms of our cash flows, if you look at the first two lines, the line titled Operating Activities and Non-Capital Financing Activities, those are the basic operations of the college. So everything is in those two lines. The revenues that come in from the tuition and fees, the property taxes, the state appropriation, and it also has all the operating expenses in those lines. That generated about $10.9 million. We also spent $6.5 million on capital and related financing activities, $5.3 million of which was in capital assets, and we did retire $1.1 million of debt plus some interest, so $1.2 million in total. We also invested $10 million in short-term instruments, such as commercial paper and short-term treasuries. And this final slide, this isn't part of the audit per se, but I did want to show you the board this slide. This is something called the Composite Financial Index, and this is used by the Higher Learning Commission to measure the financial health of the college. And you can see the index goes from a -1 to a +10. And obviously the red area is where you don't want to be. You're bordering on insolvency. Yellow is you're doing okay. You have some work to do. Green is you're doing very well in terms of your finances. And I just wanted to show here the college has been doing very well, and in particular this year has finished very strong at almost 6.5 on the index, which is a very high amount for this particular index, which would imply that we have some resources to dedicate to new initiatives in the college and make the institution stronger than it was before. And I also wanted to point out this is because of the administration as well as this board, and it demonstrates the good financial stewardship of both of those entities. I would also point out that I wouldn't necessarily expect this trajectory to continue. While it is our objective to keep this in the green, As we deploy resources on new initiatives, it might go down, but those resources should be used wisely, and we should be able to maintain ourselves in the green field of this chart. And finally, just the next steps. Once the board approves this audit, we do have to present these numbers to several federal and state agencies and organizations to show our results. Are there any questions before I pass it to our audit partner? No? So I'll turn it over to Tracy Moon. Tracy is our audit partner at AHP.
Thank you. Thank you, Cherry. Thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate this opportunity, and we're very excited to be your auditors for the next few years. I also wanted to thank VP Barnes, Controller Ben Hunholz, and EVP Johnson. They're all sitting over here. And really the entire financial service staff for the help that they provided on the audit. We could not do our job without them, and they put a lot of time and effort into that, and I really appreciate that. Tonight, I just want to take a few minutes and explain the financial statement packet that you guys have received. Because VP Barnes has already gone through the numbers and the fluctuations, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to give a high-level overview of the information that you have. The first section in the package is the management's discussion and analysis. We call that the MD&A. The MD&A is written by management, and it's really, to me, it's a really good read of what happened during the year at the college. It provides the results in a way that's easy to understand. If you're not a numbers person, looking at the financial statements can sometimes be a little bit scary, but reading through the MD&A should give you a good idea of what happened during the year and how the college compared to last year. The next section in the financial statement packet is actually our audit opinion. That's the report of independent auditors. And it's 2 pages, and this is really, these 2 pages are written by our firm, and that's all of this audit packet that is ours. It's only these 2 pages. The rest of it is prepared by management. Our opinion, we did provide an opinion of unmodified, which means that's a clean opinion. It's the best opinion that we could provide on the financial statements. And this basically means that the information presented is fairly presented within all material respects. The rest of the financial statements are the financial statements themselves and the footnotes. Again, I'm not going to go through these in detail. I did want to flip over, though, to one footnote that's a little bit unusual, and that's just because of the pandemic. So here is the risk and economic uncertainties footnote. And this footnote, this is provided because there's still somewhat of an unknown regarding the impact of the pandemic and COVID-19 and how that might affect the future of the college financial statements. This note basically tells the reader that the college doesn't know what's going to happen, and they're kind of putting the reader on alert that says, you know, anything could happen, we don't know. This is what our financials look like now, but we don't know what they're going to look like in the future. On the next page is a really good table that provides the information that VP Barnes talked about with the HERF funds. We heard CRISA, we heard ARPA tonight. This is a really good table of how much money was provided to the college, assistance for the COVID pandemic. So this would provide the reader information that says, if you didn't have this $22.6 million, what might your financial statements look like? Are there any questions on the financial statements before I move to the board report? Mm-hmm.
What page is that, the grant, the COVID grant?
That's on page 63 of the PDF.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, I do have another question.
Yep.
What's a doubtful account?
What's the what?
A doubtful?
A doubtful account?
Yeah.
So, like if you're
familiar.
talking about receivables, accounts receivables, there could be a chance that those receivables may not be collected. So it would be considered doubtful that we don't know, we're not sure or we're unsure that we're going to collect that. It's doubtful that it's going to be collected. So there's usually an allowance associated with those doubtful accounts.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, this next report is the Board of, what we call the Board of Trustees Board Report. And this, it is marked draft. Your copy should be marked draft. At the time the materials were needed for the board meeting, we were still in process of finalizing this. We have subsequently finalized the report, and there were no changes to what you have in front of you. The only thing that has changed is the representation letter that was signed by management is now attached. So again, nothing has changed as far as the content in here. So this letter starts out disclosing basically what we did, the services we provided, and the reports that we issued. You can see here the audit of the financial statements. That's what VP Barnes and I have gone over tonight. We also discuss here the uniform grant guidance audit, and I'm gonna skip that for now, and I'm gonna come back to that at the end. And then we also will prepare the Form 990T for the college. This is in process, but it will be completed in time for the tax filing deadline. The next 2 pages of this report really just lay out what we consider to be more complex, unusual, or riskier parts of the audit. Such items include accounts that have estimates, as we just talked about, financial statement item impacts because of COVID, large dollar accounts. And all of these items noted, the pension is there as well. All of these items noted on these next 2 pages were audited as part of our procedures, and there were no concerns that I would need to report to you tonight regarding what we would consider like those high risk areas. And then starting on this page, the required communication with the Board of Trustees. Our standards do require that we have certain communications with you on an annual basis, and the rest of this report really satisfies that communication with you. Again, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I will say that all of them are answered in the positive. Examples of such things would be if management and the auditors didn't agree on an accounting policy, or if there were adjustments found during our audit, different things like that. So again, all of these are answered in the positive, and I have nothing to report to you as far as concerns go regarding the audit. Any questions on the board report before I jump back to the status of the uniform guidance? Okay. So the uniform guidance report, this is an audit over the compliance and internal controls related to the expenditures of, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Where are you?
Are you not seeing it on yours?
Yeah, but we're trying to find it in the binder, like there's
Okay.
page numbers on the bottom.
It's the Board of Trustees packet. Do you have
No, sweetie, but I'm talking about where are you reading? Because we find it here. We looked at that, we found it. But where are you now where we can find it again?
Okay, page, it would be page 1.
Okay, at the very beginning?
Yep, of the board report.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Does that match?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I'm on that second bullet point under audit services. I'm talking about the uniform guidance.
Gotcha. We're there, thank you.
Yep. So the uniform guidance, again, this is a audit over the compliance and internal controls related to the expenditures of money that is received from the federal government. So if you receive federal monies, then those expenditures must be audited. The rules for the uniform guidance allow major programs to be audited, and a major program is determined based on dollar amount and risk. So for this fiscal year, 2021, there are actually 3 major programs that we're testing under the uniform guidance. And those all relate to the COVID funding, which was discussed earlier, the HERF and the CRISA and all those type of things. The audit procedures that we follow come directly from the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, and those procedures have been received. However, they have mentioned that there will be an addendum coming regarding one of the major programs that we're testing. So we have started our audit procedures on all 3 of these programs, but we're not able to finalize that report yet because we need to wait for that addendum to come to make sure that we've considered all procedures that we're supposed to test. Once we receive the addendum from OMB, we should be able to issue the uniform guidance report pretty quickly after that. We have not found any findings or question costs or anything like that during our procedures so far. Are there any questions on the uniform guidance? Okay, any questions overall? All right, well, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate the time, and we do appreciate being your auditors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear. Okay, for tab E, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees receive the FY21 audit as submitted.
No,
There-
is it for discussion
Is it
only?
just for
Right,
discussion?
now, we now move into discussion.
No, discussion. We're going to discuss it,
We're just discussing.
and
Just
we're good,
discussing.
and then we'll vote on it next.
Next meeting.
Yeah, I know that's confusing.
It is confusing. Okay, all right, so we move on to tab F then.
Yes, perfect.
Yay. Okay, review of 2023-2027 WCC Capital Outlay Plan, EVP Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yo.
Each year under tab F, we prepare the 5-year capital outlay report. This will be submitted to the state on October 29th. And in the report, there's a number of sections. The state is interested in an update on our instructional programs. You'll find that in section C of the report. In section D of the report, you'll see sections related to enrollment and staffing. Section E of the report is where we do the assessment of facilities, and we go through each building and we do a critical assessment of the condition of the facilities related to deferred maintenance. And then finally in section F, we then go through and outline in detail for 5 years all of our scheduled deferred maintenance plans and other related information. What is not yet in the report is section A, which is the executive summary. And we don't write that until we have all the content prepared. So we just have that content prepared, so we're busily writing that executive summary. And if the college were to submit a capital outlay project, that would be at the end of the report, and we're currently in that assessment phase for deciding whether or not we have a capital outlay project to submit to the state. So I would be glad to go through and answer any questions, or maybe some of my peers as it relates to their areas in probably sections C, D, and E, and then F, that relate to any of the facts. You will also note, just for structure, that there is certain data that's highlighted in yellow that we don't yet have, and that largely relates to fall 21 enrollment. And the census date for fall 21 enrollment is October 15th. So in the October package for the board, we'll have that updated information for you as the board considers approval of the final report prior to submitting to the state. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. I can give you a highlight on Section E related to facilities. You will note that as you go through under the deferred maintenance, we have a summary page that lists out each one of the conditions, the facilities assessment for each of our buildings. And the way that the state prescribes us to calculate that assessment is fiscal 23. So this starts, the 5-year period for this plan is fiscal 23 through 27. And so we're asked to show the amount of deferred maintenance that should be done for that building in that year relative to the replacement value for that building. And that's how they calculate the condition as either poor, fair, or good. And you'll note, because of the continued investment in our buildings, that most of our buildings are at a minimum fair, but mostly good. And there's only 3 buildings that are poor, and those buildings are scheduled for large projects, such as the Morris Lawrence building, or the maintenance garage, or the student center building. All projects to which the board has already funded or know that we're working on getting ready to fund with detailed planning. So through the board's direction and your long-term sustained investment in deferred maintenance, the conditions of our buildings continue to get better each and every year. So, great. Glad to answer any questions that folks might have.
Any questions? I do.
Trustee McKnight-Morton?
I'm on facility assessment, page 1 at the bottom. I was just looking at the building and the building usage, and I saw where there's the peak hours and off-peak, evening, and weekends. I'm looking at to me, it looks like there's some discrepancies. I shouldn't use that word, but it looks like it to me, of the amount of usage. I know daytime is going to be up there, but the weekend numbers throws me off. And what it is on the Gunder Myron building, it's 26%. The ed building on weekends is 46%. Well, not that, but student center is 33% and T&I is 48%. So I'm looking at those percentages, and it just shows to me, do we really need to have the time frame on Fridays 5 to 10, Saturday, Sunday 8 to 10 p.m. for that length of time if the percentage is low, or I'm not understanding the percentage?
So Trustee McKnight-Morton, so you're on page 1 under Section E, facility assessment.
Assessment, yep. Right.
Item B. So first of all, for the board, while the capital outlay report requires this to be the most recent information, we have chosen to go back to the most relevant year to which our campus was being utilized pre-COVID. So this is fall 19 data.
Gotcha.
That we have. If we were to show you a snapshot today, it'd be much lower utilization for the reasons that we've talked about.
Okay.
So those percentages relate to our best information around scheduled courses and other activities that are going on in our buildings for the timeframes that the state has required. And certainly on weekends and certain times, they would be a lower utilization than during the week. But I will say that as a general rule, that from a scheduling standpoint, that we are looking at more and more of scheduling, not only when it makes sense from a staffing perspective, but when there's market demand. So we're doing a lot more scheduling in evenings and more schedulings on Fridays, and then also on weekends as well. And that's a continual assessment that the college goes through.
Oh, okay. Okay, so to be honest, actually this is almost like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, or the percentages I'm looking at. But however, going forward, it's going to possibly increase with the same hours? That's
So-
what you're saying.
You know, that's a great question, and I think that as shown in the footnotes to the financials that you just heard of, we are still trying to understand the impacts of COVID, post-COVID, and the demand on our campus.
Right.
And so we're watching that very, very carefully and trying to respond to what our students want and to what our community wants.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Hatcher?
Do we have a new name for the family education building, since it's no longer a family education building?
We do not. We are currently under a feasibility study for that building. And one of those potential uses is a home for WTMC.
Right.
And we're currently going through a feasibility. We have not yet concluded that is the best use for that building at this time.
What does that mean?
We are currently assessing the total needs for WTMC and whether or not it is the best fit for WTMC relative to the investment that it's going to take to renovate that building to meet their needs. And that's a joint decision that we'd recommend back to the board, both from WTMC and to the WCC board.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I'm done.
All right. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like to suggest that it become a family education building.
But there's not a family there.
Well, we could do that. We could have a daycare center.
I think that's dead and gone now.
Okay, going on to tab G, the parking lot lighting, AVP Whipstock.
Good evening again. So this is the lighting project I spoke of a little bit earlier. This is to retrofit our existing parking lot and walkway lighting. The existing lights that we have were retrofit LED to HID lights about 12 years ago. And these lights are starting to fail, and the company that we bought them from isn't in business anymore. So we're having a hard time finding parts for them. So the next best thing is to, LED lights have become more energy efficient than them, and is to upgrade all the LED fixtures on the outside. So the new system will be a wireless system that will be able to adapt into the security system, so they could turn on and off lights as they need in different parking lot areas, which we don't have that capability of right now. Currently, we're proposing to do 3 parking lots, which is parking lots 5, 6, and 7. This would also include upgrading the existing transformer that's located out in parking lot 7. So we'd be changing that out, upgrading it, and increasing the size of it, like I said, to accommodate the future adoption of electric charging vehicles out in that area. This project also supports our 2% energy reduction goal. There is energy savings. Went out for bid, and Harlan Electric of Rochester was the low bidder for $233,203. Any questions?
Any questions? Any
I'm
discussion?
glad to see that we're dark sky compliant with those lights.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
No,
Yep.
but it's a good, it's very good. I'm a
Yep.
neighbor, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
So we're good? Okay.
May I say something before
Yes,
we go on?
yes, President Balanca.
Thank you. Before we move on the agenda, I did want to mention a few words. We're going to be talking about, as you can see, facility building renovations, expansions, and quite a bit of money. And to me, it's just really important that the board has time, to all of us. We want to make sure that, you really understand what we're talking about in terms of requesting this amount of money. And so I did not want to just present today and then not see you for a month and not have a chance to just talk about what's happening so that you could vote at the next meeting, because we do need your vote if you approve it at the very next meeting. So that, to me, that I was just thinking if I was on a board, I'd want a little more information, which is why hopefully you'll support the retreat, that fall retreat, where we're going to go into more detail what you're going to hear tonight from EVP Johnson. So that's, I just wanted to stress that. So we can have a good discussion, and I just want to make sure you're comfortable. And I also would like the board to know that we knew that both Trustee DeVardi and Board Chair Milliken were not going to be here tonight. So when we met with them, Terry Barnes and Bill Johnson and myself, we went through this portion of the agenda with them, because I wanted to make sure that everyone understood this, as we move forward. So so even though they're not here, they did hear the same thing you're going to hear tonight. Okay? That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, tab H, EVP Johnson for the Facilities, Buildings, Improvements, and Geo Expansion Capital Project.
Great, thank you very much. As President Balanca said, this is the first of two capital fund either establishment or adjustments that we are going to present tonight, go into further discussion potentially at the October 5th retreat if the board so chooses to have that, and that we would ask the board then to act on those motions if comfortable at the October 26th board meeting, regular board meeting. The first of these two, this is a project that in its start was many years ago. VP Damon Flowers had identified for the board the need to replace or at least to greatly improve the maintenance garage. And that's how this project started. And so since that time, we have studied various ways that we could address the maintenance garage needs, address the need to get all of our facility staff under one roof. They're currently spread across campus. And then also during those studies and in discussions with our UA partner, they identified that they actually wanted to expand their training space, which is now in the storage and receiving building, the SRB building. So that was thrown in the mix. So we really look, and we've laid out for you tonight 2 different scenarios to address all those needs. Scenario 1 was really to expand the footprint of the UA in the SRB building, displace the folks that are currently using that space today, and then to go address the maintenance garage need and then the facility staff needs. And in that scenario, that was a $3.7 million project, of which the UA portion of that renovation cost would be about $1 million. So it would cost WCC net about $2.7 million. And that was one option, but it was challenging. It was challenging in the sense that when we first addressed the training needs of the UA in the SRB building, that space was not ideal for them and frankly for the campus. You were putting training activities right back in a warehouse, storage and receiving. There's a lot of activities within that area. It was not ideal. Now, we certainly could accommodate it, but it was not our preferred choice. So we approached the UA with another option, which is, what about if we were to move all of your training needs you have today and identify to grow in the future and put them in the Great Lakes building and expand that building? And they liked that as a concept. Now we needed to test the economics of it and the feasibility of it. And so under scenario 2, you will see that we really is a 3-pronged project, and the one that we're recommending, it's a slightly larger project in gross dollars, so it would be a total cost of $4 million. of which 2.4 million would be the expansion of the Great Lakes building. And then the balance of 1.6 million would be split between renovating the SRB to accommodate all of the facility staff, and then to return the maintenance garage back to being what it was originally built for, which was for storage of vehicles and equipment. And in that, you will see that the recommendation is that scenario 2 is the preferred route for us. In that, although it's a $4 million cost, that the UA would fund 1.4 million, and so the WCC cost would be essentially the same, actually a little less, about 2.6 million. What that would accomplish, again, is all of the UA training functions would now be in the Great Lakes building. They're very excited about that. A good portion of their storage needs, not all, but a good portion of it, would actually be accommodated in mezzanine storage as part of that Great Lakes expansion. Mm-hmm. The storage and receiving building now could house all of the facility staff under one roof, so that AVP Whipstock and team could really operate in a more cohesive way. And then lastly, that we would have lesser of investment to restore the maintenance garage, because we would then be not trying to bring it up to code for housing people, but just for things. I'm also pleased to say that the UA last Friday, that the UA Training Fund Board approved, if the college decides to go ahead with scenario 2, that they have approved the funding of the 1.4 million, which would be their portion of the Great Lakes expansion for that. The goal for this project would be, and it's a quite aggressive goal, is that we would be able, if the board would approve at the October meeting, that we would be able to accomplish the GL expansion by next summer in time for the UA training in August. We are currently bidding the GL expansion project as we speak, and we would plan to bring a recommendation for the construction contract for the GL expansion at the October meeting. We've written the UA funding agreement in a way that if the total cost of the GL expansion exceeds 2.4 million, because the 2.4 is an estimate at this time, that the UA would increase their funding above the 1.4 to absorb any amount above the 2.4 total cost of that expansion. And so the college's net investment would still be at the 2.6 million as a result. And that's tab H.
So that building would be expanded toward here in River Drive?
It actually would be expanded, and at the October retreat, I'll have some layouts for us. But it's actually going to be expanded the east end of the Great Lakes building, but not towards us here in ML, but towards the car barn. So it's actually going to be out back. There's a parking area there right now that is dedicated towards parking for that Great Lakes that fits very nicely to be the footprint for the new expansion. And we would be adding 3 labs, 2 on the main level, 1 on the main level, and 3 classrooms to be upstairs along with storage. And I'll provide details at the October 5th meeting.
Oh. I'll hold my question till then.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, I would not be able to make the retreat, but I do have a question because I'm trying to, the schematics, I'm trying to visualize the map in my head of the campus. So when you say the Great Lakes building, where is that in relation to the facilities? Or is that the Great Lakes building?
No, the Great Lakes building today is attached to the OE building, so it's
okay, so over here.
Yep, it's over
okay, so we're talking about expanding the scenario 2, the maintenance garage, or to move all the UA ironworkers and storage space. Okay, they're currently there. Okay, reconfigure the SRB to accommodate all the facility departments. So are we trying to move them over to the Great Lakes, or what are we doing?
Yep, so we
And I'm asking this specifically because if we're making expansions to, and I'm going to go with the facilities again because you want everything in one centralized location, is there like a drawing, just a little map or something on the paper, just 2D, because I know there's a road that goes behind there. Is that road going to come out? You know, things like that.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
That's okay. I'd be happy to meet with you.
Okay, good.
Or any trustee that can't, I hope we vote for this retreat, but I understand your commitment because you explained it.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to meet with you at your convenience.
Okay.
Have those drawings for you because that's a very good question. And I'd want to see it too. So, do you mind?
No,
It's a good
I would
question,
love
but I'd love to,
yeah.
you need
Just
to,
so that I
you
can
need
have
to see it.
Right, just a clear understanding.
And we'll just, so you
that'd be
can,
great.
before you, well before you have to vote on it, so you have time to think about it and talk about it.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else? We're done?
Put that one.
Okay, we'll keep going.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Then we'll move on to tab I in the board agenda. As was indicated, the board had approved funding at $10 million for the ML project, but that did not include any improvements to the technology within the Morris Lawrence building. And the board had mentioned to administration that we needed to take a hard look at what it would take to bring the technology in this building up to standards and set us up for the future in support of conference activities and all other activities that go on within the building. So there has been significant work done as led by the Aleutian team of Todd Kruger and his team, along with a lot of discussions throughout the college as to trying to identify the critical technology needs within this building. There's going to be a detailed presentation done by Todd Kruger and team at the October retreat. So the board will have ample opportunity to go through that in detail and ask questions. But the sum total, our estimate right now for that is a total cost of about $3.3 million for technology improvements. And then about another $200,000 in increase is requested for contingency related to all of that technology work. So that in total, the motion the board has is to increase the total cost of the ML project from $10 million to $13.5 million, or a $3.5 million increase. And of that $3.5 million increase, we have identified about $1 million in work is going to be associated with our current general contractor, Stenco, because there's a lot of building infrastructure work that has to be done to accommodate the technology requirements. So the board had approved Stenco as a $9 million, not to exceed $9 million contract. We're asking that to be increased by $1 million up to $10 million. So of the total $13.5 million, then $10 million would be part of Stenco. And then the balance of that would be for the technology costs, which would be the cost of the equipment and the installation of that equipment, which we've identified at about $2.4 million. Those contracts for technology are also currently being bid out. And Todd Kruger will be presenting those contracts to the board at the October 26th board meeting as well. But again, at the October 5th meeting, Todd will be going through that in detail, what all the technology elements are that add up to an estimated cost of about $3.3 million related to technology for that.
President Balanca?
No, it's.
Oh, Trustee Hatcher?
Aside from maps, maybe needed at the board retreat. I'd like to see a sort of a budget of all of this. I'm beginning to see millions, millions everywhere. And so I'd like to see cost and also where it's coming from in the budget. I mean, is it coming, well, you know what I mean. So I'd like to see before I vote on it, I'd like to see where the money's coming from and what's left, you see?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, and so these motions do indicate that our request, both for the prior the 4 million for the facilities and jail expansion, net of the UA, so 2.6 million of WCC money from that project, and 3.5 million from this project, so a total of 6.1 million would be funded out of general fund reserve.
But I'd like to just see it all on a piece of paper. Thank you.
So,
President Balanca.
just to the board. So, you know, one of the reasons that that retreat is the reason we're like, it seems like it's like, okay, October, you have to decide by October. That's why we wanted to give you enough time to ask questions. And, you know, now the reason it's so timely is because we have to get this building done by June?
By July 1st.
By July 1st. And so when we started looking at the technology portion, that added a whole extra month to the construction of this building, the renovation of this building, because they had to break down, you know, they had to do a lot of renovations to the floor and all kinds of things. So that's why we need to get this to you. It seems in such a quick fashion, but that's how this all happened.
Why July 1st?
We need to have this all ready for UA. So the UA is coming in, we have to make sure we're all ready for UA for the iron workers. Iron workers are first, then the UA. So that's the thing.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Anything else?
And we have to do the value thing in October, too. There's a deadline for that.
You mean the capital outlay thing? Yes.
Yeah, that's also October.
Right. And we'll talk about that too.
You know.
The capital outlay, I don't think, probably not going to be too bad.
No.
I'm just going to.
There just needs to be coffee.
We just need to talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Whew. Okay. Tab J. Looks like there's two parts. So the first part is resolution regarding local strategic value best practices for 2021. It says that the recommendation that the Washtenaw Community College Board of Trustees certify that the college does meet at least 4 of 5 local strategic value best practices for 2021 as required annually by the state of Michigan to receive full performance funding-based appropriations, and has demonstrated compliance in 5 best practice areas in each of 3 categories, as evidenced by representative examples in the attached document.
That was the presentation you just saw.
Did I?
In the beginning.
Okay.
The first presentation.
Okay. So we're doing a roll call on this, the motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Vanessa, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Secretary Hatcher,
Yes.
Trustee Fleming,
Yes.
Trustee Landau,
Yes.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
Yes.
Okay, so the second part is the revision to 2021 schedule of board meetings. And that is, the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees revise their 2021 schedule board meeting to hold their annual fall retreat on October 5, 2021 at 1 p.m. The fall retreat will be held in the Towsley Auditorium of the Morris Lawrence Building. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Vanessa, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Secretary Hatcher?
Yes?
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Landau?
Yes.
Trustee McKnight-Morton?
Yes.
Ooh, are we done? Okay. Ooh, we finally made it. Adjournment of the meeting. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I
Can I
have
ask
your
a question?
motion?
How long do we think the retreat will be?
2 hours.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. to interrupt.
That's okay. Do I
So
hear a
moved.
motion? Thank you. Second?
Was there a second?
Second.
Awesome. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.